There. Okay, it's recording. All right. Can you see this, my screen here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All I've done on this program is I created, a list box. And I've got 3 buttons that go with it. The first one, if you come down here, instead of using an array list, just remember that if you think back to Visual Basic when we were in there, to write from an array to a file or bringing it from the file back to an array, it had to be in a static array. Do you remember that? It couldn't do the dynamic array list. It had to have a set length for it. So right here, I just did table 1, table 2. One I load, the other one I pull back in. But anyway, table 1, I just loaded it with some values, correct? On load. So this would be just like if you loaded an array whenever your form loaded in a web form. Then that button is the show button is this part right here, okay? And all I'm doing is dimming that array just like I would an array list. And then I count it and go, okay? And it prints it to the list box, all right? To write to an array, it's this button right here, okay? This defines our stream writer. It defines an object called text file. Then in the text file, I'm telling it to create a text file out on drive C, and because of our computers, it wouldn't let me write right to drive C because of security issues. I had to create a subdirectory and then give me the name of the file, correct? This is what I'm writing to. Then I dim my for loop, I count how big my array is, and then I throw it into the loop, and the command is just text file.writeLine, and what it's writing out there is a string, a bundled string, whether it be 4 fields separated by a comma or just a name or whatever, right? It's just treating that as if it's a string because the table is a string. If you see at the top where we define them. When I get through going through the loop and writing to the table, I close the file. I mean, I can go out and show you the text file, but it's just a regular text file that it writes. Button 3, this one right here, is to read it back in from the file and load it back into an array. The only difference is instead of pulling it into table 1, I put it into table 2 so you know it truly was working. I was messing around with some of this stuff. That's why I dimmed them. I found a better way to do it right there where I created this as if it were a stringed array itself, okay? So I read it back in, I count it. The one thing I did do playing around with this, if you remember, I used the command called redim. So up at the top, if I dimmed it for 5 in length, it's elements 0 through 4. When I pull it back in from the file, I redim it because I can count how big that is by making it a string array, that text file right there. It will allow me to count it. So remember, if we went out and played around with the arrays where we wrote to an array and then we went out and opened the text file up directly and added to it, and then saved that text file, and then we loaded it back into our program. By doing the redim, if you had this written where several different programs used the same file, if one modified it, when you pull it back into the existing program, it would recalculate the length and then load it into your table again. But redim just allows me to change the length of the array based upon how many entries are in that text file. Does that make sense there?
Mm-hmm.
It's really pretty straightforward. We take an array. The only difference with what we're doing right now with an array list, we have to move it from the array list to the array. And if you do that, you can just redim based upon the array link, create a field like right up here. You could just say, take that line, dim table 2, and inside the parentheses put J. And then after you do that, you just say dim table 2 parentheses J as string. And however long the array list is, that's how big the static array will be. And you just move it from the array list to the array and then write the file.
Can you send this text
Yes, I will.
on D2L?
Yes, I'm going to upload this one to D2L. Then I'm also going to, I've got the form. I guess that's really all I need to do right here, isn't it? Because that shows the array list in the list box. This saves it to the disk, and this loads it back from the disk. So it shows you all 3 steps of saving it or not, okay? The only difference you got to do is move it from an array list to a static array before you get the disk or back. And I might even write up a whole nother example and modify this a bit. And when I do that, I'll upload that whole program also, okay? But Thursday, we're going to have a program where you're going to capture information, you're going to store it in an array list, and then you're going to save that array list to disk. Next time you run that program, on the first time it runs, correct? Remember we had that little if statement on the first time the form loads, is it a new form or not? On the first time it loads, we want to pull the coding to bring it back from disk to reload the array list. Okay? But I'll try to put a whole example together and throw it out there on disk or out on D2L.
So that you said that's going to be Thursday. We're going to start that.
I'm going to make that assignment on Thursday, and we'll have this week and next week to finish it. I will also supply you with an example of the database all the way through. Okay. So you'll have an example of a working database program. And we won't meet this Thursday, but probably next Tuesday we'll go back live online so we can talk about that and review for a final and talk about our final, because the week after that's our final. It's just,
so we're not having a final?
yes, we are.
But we're having
a final.
We're having a final, but we're not having a final.
No, we are having a final.
So we're not having a final, but we are having a final.
Elijah? Yes, final. And all of you need to have video working so I can proctor you. Okay?
Yeah, my video's working right now. Can't you see my face?
Yeah, it looks a little scary. All right, so questions on that?
Nope. Nothing.
Jonah had a question in the chat.
Oh, okay. I can't get to the chat right now. What was
It
his?
says webcam.
If we can. I mean, if we need to, you can connect in with your phone and just leave your phone watching you while you take your final. I just need some way to watch you while you're doing your final, because I got to have a proctored test, some way, shape, or form. So I was just going to do it.
Why are you trying to watch us?
So you don't cheat.
Always watching.
Big brother, right? Okay.
Jonah, if you don't have a webcam, you can plug your phone in, and there's an app. If you have an Android phone or iPhone, they both will work. You can either use that as a webcam or use the Zoom app directly on your phone.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Just fire up Zoom on your phone, and you can still work on your computer through D2L as long as I can see you through your phone. Okay? And we'll talk more about that next Tuesday, all right?
You just got to see us.
I've got to see you.
All right, that's fine.
Okay. All righty. Well, I'll upload this content and then try to get another couple ready for Thursday, and on next Tuesday we'll go live again. Just there's not a whole lot of time to cram everything in and test you over it, but I want you to be at least have an example of all of it, because the actual database stuff, it's pretty cookie cutter form. There's a lot to it, but it's very repetitive, whether you're writing to a file, you're select query from a file, a table. But I'll give you an example of all that. All right.
All right. See you later, Chief. Have a good day.
All righty. So I'll, like I said, I'll copy this, throw the video up, and I'll also throw this example up. And then Wednesday night or Thursday, you should have more information online. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
See you
All
guys.
right. See ya.
Bye.
Adios.